Hey guys, tonight we are traveling to a place where the rules are different. Not just the rules of kings and empires, but the very rules of reality, of what you see when you look in the mirror. We're journeying to a world tucked away in the vast, windswept landscapes of the Sahara, where the definition of beauty is turned completely on its head. This isn't a story of swords and sandals, but of skin and sustenance. And frankly, you might find the standards here a little demanding. It's a trip that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about the human form. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support truly means the world. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the silence. It's not an empty silence, but a heavy one, thick with the weight of the sun and the endless expanse of sand. You're sitting on a woven mat. The rough fibers are stark contrast to the soft, worn fabric of the tent walls around you. The air smells of dust, dried herbs, and the sweet, steamy aroma of mint tea being poured from a grate into tiny glasses. Outside, the world is a canvas of beige and ochre, a place where life clings on with a fierce and quiet tenacity. You are a child in this world, or at least, you have the perspective of one. Everything is seen from a lower angle. The adults around you are towering figures. Their voices are low, comforting murmur that forms the soundtrack of your days. They speak a language that flows like water, full of poetic turns and ancient wisdom. And tonight, the conversation is about beauty. An uncle, his face a roadmap of wrinkles etched by a lifetime under the sun, is talking about a recent wedding. He speaks of the bride not with words you might expect. He doesn't mention a slender waist, or delicate, sharp features. Instead, his voice fills with admiration as he describes her as a true vision of wealth and health. He talks about her ankles, so full and round they created ripples in the sand as she walked. He praises her arms, which he says had the soft, generous curve of a crescent moon. And then you hear the word that truly catches your attention. He speaks of the silvery lines on her skin, the stretch marks, and he describes them not as imperfections, but as trophies. They are signs, he says with a deep nod, that her family is so prosperous they could afford to literally pour their fortune into her, shaping her into a living symbol of their status. In a land where hunger has always been a lurking shadow, a large body is the ultimate statement. It says, "We will never know want. We have more than enough." This is your first real lesson in the local aesthetic. This is the core of a tradition known in many places as Leblouh. It's a practice, primarily in parts of northwest Africa, Mauritania, where young girls are deliberately fattened, sometimes for months, to prepare them for marriage. A full, voluptuous figure isn't just one type of beauty for a long time. It was the only type of beauty that mattered. It signaled that a girl came from a good family, that she was healthy, and that she possessed the substance and grace to be a desirable wife. You listen, trying to wrap your mind around it. The women in your own family nod in agreement, and Aunt adds her own commentary, talking about how a skinny woman is a tragedy, a sign of poverty and misfortune for her family, like a tree with no leaves in the dry season. She says, clicking her tongue in disapproval. Who would want to rest in its shade? It's a strange and fascinating thought. In the world you came from, magazines and movies praise thinness. Here, it is seen as a sign of neglect, a mark of shame. As you sip your sweet tea, you overhear a snippet of information that sounds almost mythical, that in the past, the most dedicated fattening regimens could involve consuming calories equivalent to what a modern-day professional athlete eats in a day. We're talking bowls upon bowls of pounded millet mixed with butter, and liters of rich, fatty camel's or goat's milk. The sheer volume is staggering to even think about. And as the adults continue their conversation, You can't help but wonder about the origins of such a powerful and demanding ideal. Where did it come from? Historians and anthropologists are still debating this very question. Some argue it is a direct, pragmatic response to centuries of living on the edge of the desert, where drought and famine were constant threats. In this view, a fat wife was the best life insurance a man could have. A visible, walking pantry. Others suggest the roots go even deeper, perhaps into pre-Islamic tribal beliefs that linked large female forms with fertility goddesses and the very essence of life and abundance. The truth is likely a complex tapestry woven from both threads. The idea hangs in the air of the tent, a question with no simple answer, as ancient as the sand outside. Tonight, you will fall asleep on your mat not with dreams of princes and castles, but with these new, heavy words echoing in your mind: abundance, wealth, ripples, and honor. You'll dream of beauty measured not in delicacy, but in sheer, undeniable presence. And you have no idea yet, but soon, this abstract concept of beauty will become your own, very personal reality. The world returns to you not as a thought, but as a feeling. It's the feeling of warmth, a profound and absolute security that cocoons you from everything. The light is a dim, rosy filter, and the sounds are muffled, distant heartbeats in the gentle rhythm of breathing. You are new. Your existence is measured in hours, not days, and your universe is the soft curve of your mother's arms. Her scent is everything milk, sweat, and something uniquely her, a smell that means safety. Your arrival was celebrated not with quiet reverence, but with a joyful, bustling energy. The women of your family have been a constant presence, a flock of colorful robes and silver bracelets. Their voices are continuous, melodic hum. They lean over you, their faces filling your blurry vision, their hands impossibly gentle as they adjust your swaddling. But their words, if you could understand them, are not the simple cushioned praises for a newborn. They are words of appraisal, of potential. "Ah, look at the rolls on her wrists already," a great aunt says, her voice rich with satisfaction. She lightly pinches the tiny fold of skin, not with cruelty, but with the careful consideration of a merchant examining fine silk. She will be a great beauty. Her bones are strong, made to carry the honor of this family. Another woman, your grandmother, dips her little finger into a small clay pot of softened, clarified butter. She brings the gleaming finger to your lips, brushing a minuscule amount onto them. It's a symbolic gesture, a blessing and a prophecy all in one. A prayer that your life will be one of plenty, that your body will reflect the richness of your home, that you will never know the hollow ache of hunger. This is a small, intimate ritual, a piece of folk magic passed down through generations, ensuring a child is set on the path of abundance from their very first day. You are a treasure, but you are also an investment. In this world, a daughter is the family's future ambassador. Your body will one day become the canvas on which your family's prosperity is painted for all to see. A healthy, robust daughter is proof of their success, a walking testament to their ability to provide. And so, the project of your beauty begins now, in the cradle. Your mother is encouraged, almost commanded, to eat. She has brought bowls of rich porridge, dates soaked in milk, and fatty cuts of meat. Her diet is a crucial part of the process, for the quality of her milk will directly influence your early growth. The other women watch her, clucking with approval when she finishes a large meal, their collective goal being to pour their family's resources into you through her. The mainstream understanding here is simple: a girl's marriageability is directly tied to her size. But this isn't just about finding a husband. It's about securing the family's place in the social hierarchy. A marriage is not just a union of two people, it's an alliance between two families, and a bride who is visibly well cared for, whose body speaks of a life of ease and plenty, brings immense honor. She is a gift that reflects well on the giver. But there's a deeper question that historians and sociologists are still untangling. Was this tradition purely an economic display, a case of conspicuous consumption where a daughter's body was the equivalent of a luxury car, Or was it rooted in a more complex philosophy about a woman's character and her role in society? Some scholars argue that a heavy, sedentary body was seen as a sign of a common stable temperament. A thin, weary woman might be seen as flighty, restless, and untrustworthy, whereas a large woman was grounded. Literally and figuratively, her physicality was believed to mirror her dependable and placid nature. The debate continues as to whether the primary driver was a statement of wealth or a statement of virtue, with the body acting as a physical manifestation of a woman's good character. As you lie there, bathed in the soft light filtering through the tent, you feel none of this pressure. You feel only the gentle rocking, the soft murmur of voices, and the satisfying fullness in your belly. The world is simple and good, but even now, in these first few days of your life, the path is being paved. The expectations are being woven into the very fabric of your care. The hands that soothe you are also the hands that are measuring you, judging your potential. They are tracing the future curves of your body with their eyes, imagining the magnificent woman you are destined to become. You are a source of immense love and joy, yes, but you are also a vessel, and soon, the time will come to start filling it. For now, you just drift in a warm, milky sea of blissful ignorance, the most precious and promising project the family has ever undertaken. The years of early childhood drift by in a haze of sun and sand. Time isn't marked by calendars or clocks, but by the shifting seasons, the fierce heat of summer giving way to the milder, kinder sun of winter, and the rare, miraculous days when the sky opens up and blesses the parched earth with rain. Your world is small and safe, contained within the familiar circle of your family estates and the well-trodden paths to the nearby well. Your days are filled with the simple, timeless games of children everywhere. You chase lizards through the dusty ground, build miniature fortresses out of pebbles, and listen to the old stories told by the elders in the cool of the evening. But threaded through all of this, a constant, gentle pressure exists, as pervasive and unremarkable as the air you breathe. It's the culture of food. Food is not just for sustenance, it is the language of love, care, and community. Every visit from a relative, every small celebration, is marked by the sharing of food. And at the center of this culinary universe are two things: milk and dates. Camel's milk, goat's milk, cow's milk. It is the white gold of the desert, a symbol of life itself. It's served fresh and frothy, soured into a tangy yogurt, or churned into butter. You drink it from a communal wooden bowl. Its rich, slightly salty taste, a familiar comfort. Your mother or an aunt is always there with a bowl, urging you to have a little more. For your bones, they say, to make you strong. It's never a harsh command. Not yet. It's a gentle coaxing, a loving gesture. But the expectation is clear: a good child is a child who eats well, who accepts the nourishment offered without fuss. Then there are the dates. They are nature's candy, sticky and sweet. A burst of energy in the palm of your hand. They are everywhere, piled high in baskets. They're dark, glossy skins shimmering in the tent's dim light. You eat them plain, stuffed with a dollop of butter, or mashed into a thick, sweet paste. They are a reward, a snack, a constant presence in your diet. This diet, rich in fat and sugar, is the foundation being laid. It's not the aggressive, targeted fattening of the Leblouh ritual itself, but a prelude, a lifelong acclimatization to a high-calorie intake. You are being taught, from your earliest memories, to associate love and approval with a full stomach. This is the mainstream historical understanding of how the process begins, not with force, but with culture. It's a gentle, nurturing conditioning that prepares a girl's body and mind for what is to come. But here's a peculiar little detail that often gets lost in the broader narrative. It wasn't just about the quantity of food, but also its perceived properties. Certain foods were believed to have specific beautifying effects. For example, some communities held that a diet heavy in fenugreek, a common herb, would not only stimulate appetite and weight gain but also give the skin a particularly lustrous, smooth quality. So, you might find yourself drinking milk infused with this pungent, slightly bitter O, told that it's a special secret to becoming beautiful, a bit like a traditional beauty supplement. You notice the difference in how you and your brothers are treated. Your brothers are encouraged to run, to be lean and swift. Their energy is a sign of their budding masculinity. They are praised for their speed and agility. You, on the other hand, are gently discouraged from strenuous play. A girl shouldn't be so boisterous, an elder might say, guiding you towards quieter activities, sitting and watching the women weave, learning the simple rhythms of domestic tasks. Your energy is meant to be conserved, stored, turned inward to build the substance of your body. The tension lies in the fact that this isn't seen as restrictive by the people enforcing it. It's seen as protective. They are safeguarding your future beauty, your future value, but through your child's eyes. You simply learn that there are two ways of being in the world: the lean, active way of boys, and the soft, still way of girls. And the academic debate continues on this point. Was this early life dietary focus a conscious, strategic first step in a multi-stage fattening process, or was it simply a byproduct of a culture of abundance, where providing rich food to daughters was a natural expression of love and status, with the more formalized Leblouh being a separate, later decision? Some historians argue for a clear, intentional timeline, where a girl was earmarked for fattening from birth. Others suggest it was more fluid, that this childhood diet was the norm for all well-off girls, and the decision to enter a formal fattening farm was made only as they approached puberty, based on their natural constitution and the family's ambitions. The line between cultural norm and deliberate preparation is blurry and likely varied from family to family, region to region. For now, you know nothing of these debates. You only know the sweet taste of dates, the creamy comfort of milk, and the warm, heavy feeling of a full belly as you drift off to sleep. You are a cherished child in a world that shows its love through nourishment. You are being built, lovingly and deliberately, layer by layer, for a future you cannot yet imagine. The gentle pressure is constant, a soft, shaking hand on the small of your back, guiding you forward. Life continues in its rhythmic, predictable pattern until one day, it doesn't. You are perhaps 9, maybe 10 years old. It's an age where you are no longer a small child, but not yet a woman. You stand on the cusp of a great change, and you can feel it in the air. In the way the adults look at you, their gaze has changed. It's no longer just loving unprotective, it's evaluated. They are measuring you with their eyes, not just for your health, but for your readiness. The decision is not made in a grand, formal announcement. There is no family council where your fate is debated. It happens quietly, in the hushed conversations between your mother and father, in the knowing glances exchanged between your grandmother and your aunts. It's a consensus that builds like a sand dune, grain by grain, until it is a solid, unshakable reality. The time has come. You might first sense it when your father returns from a trip to a larger market town. He brings back the usual good sacks of grain, sugar, tea, but this time, he also brings a gift specifically for you. It's not a toy or a simple piece of clothing. It might be a set of heavy silver anklets, far too large and ornate for the girl you are now. As your mother fastens one around your ankle, you feel its surprising weight. It's a beautiful object, intricately carved, but it feels less like a decoration and more like a symbol. A beautiful, gentle anchor for the woman you will soon become, she says, her voice soft but firm. The catalyst is often an upcoming event, a cousin's wedding, a religious festival, or simply the fact that a prominent family in a neighboring camp has a son who is approaching marriageable age. Your family sees an opportunity, a window in time that must be seized. Your value as a bride will be at its peak in the coming years, and they must prepare you to meet that moment. Your body is the key to a strategic alliance, a way to cement social ties and elevate the family standing. This moment, the decision to begin the formal gavage, the French term often used for this force feeding, is a pivotal point in a girl's life. It marks the end of childhood, The mainstream historical fact is that this wasn't seen as a punishment, but as an honor. It was a sign that your family had the resources and the ambition to invest in you, to turn you into a masterpiece of their culture's ideal. You were chosen. The day it becomes real is unremarkable in its setting. You are sitting with your mother, perhaps mending a piece of fabric. She speaks to you not in a tone of command, but of gentle instruction, as she has 1,000 times before. She tells you that soon you will be going away for a little while. You will be staying with a relative, or perhaps with a woman in a nearby camp known for her special skills. She will teach you what you need to know to be a respected woman. Your mother explains. She will help you to blossom. The euphemisms are gentle, poetic. They speak of blooming, of ripening, of becoming full. They carefully avoid the blunter language of force and food. You are being prepared for a sacred duty, a rite of passage that the women in your family have all, to some degree, gone through before you. You are joining along, unbrokenly. But here's the strange, lesser-known detail: the decision was not always solely the parents'. In some accounts, particularly in more recent history, a girl's own grandmother or a powerful aunt held significant sway. A grandmother, having been through the process herself and seeing its social benefits, might be the most adamant proponent, overriding a mother's potential softness or a father's financial hesitation. She would be the one to insist, arguing that it was a matter of family honor and the girl's own future happiness. The matriarchal pressure could be the true deciding factor, a reminder that women were often the primary gatekeepers and enforcers of this tradition. You don't protest. How could you have been conditioned your whole life to see this as a path of honor? To refuse would be to reject your family's love, to insult their ambitions for you. It would be like a flower refusing to bloom. And yet, a knot of apprehension tightens in your stomach. You have seen older girls return from these days. You've seen their new, slow way of walking. You've seen the way they barely touch their food at family meals, their eyes holding a distant, wary look you couldn't decipher. The academic controversy surrounding this moment is significant. Was this transition really seen by the girls themselves as an honor? Or was there a silent, culturally suppressed understanding of the ordeal to come? Early ethnographic accounts, often written by men, tend to emphasize the celebratory aspects in the girl's compliance. More recent studies, relying on the oral histories of women, have uncovered a far more complex picture. They reveal stories of fear, of sadness at the loss of freedom, and of a deep-seated anxiety that was simply not permissible to express. Historians are still debating how much agency, or even internal resistance, these young girls might have felt versus the overwhelming power of cultural indoctrination. The day ends like any other. The sun sets, painting the sky in fiery colors. The evening meal is sad. But for you, something has irrevocably shifted. The familiar world of your childhood has begun to recede, and a new, unknown chapter is about to begin. The heavy silver anklet on your leg feels like a premonition, a weight that grounds you to a future that has been chosen for you. Tomorrow, you will pack a small bundle of your things, and your journey will begin. Your blossoming is about to be carefully and forcefully managed. The morning of your departure is quiet. The usual boisterous energy of the camp is subdued, as if holding its breath. Your mother helps you pack a small bag with a change of clothes and your silver anklet, which now feels heavier than ever. There are no tears, only a series of tight, brief hugs from your aunts and grandmother. Their faces are a mixture of pride and a faint, unreadable shadow of something else: memory, perhaps empathy. It's impossible to tell. Your father or an uncle leads a camel, which kneels patiently on the sand. You are lifted onto its back, perched high above the ground. As the camel lurches to its feet, you look down at the familiar scene of your home, and for the first time, it looks small, a tiny island in a vast sea of sand. The journey isn't necessarily long in distance, but it is immense in its meaning. It is a one-way trip across the invisible border between girlhood and the strange. no state of being. You travel for a few hours. The rhythmic sway of the camel, a monotonous beat counting down to your arrival. The landscape is hypnotic, an endless repetition of dunes and sparse, hardy acacia trees. Finally, you see it in the distance, another small encampment. A handful of tents looking no different from your own. But you know, with a certainty that chills you despite the heat, that this place is different. This is a place of transformation. This is what some observers have called a fattening farm or a fattening camp. It's not a formal institution with a sign out front. It's usually just the home of a woman who has a reputation for this specific skill. She is a professional, an expert in the art and science of Leblouh. Families pay her for her services, entrusting their daughters to her care for weeks or months at a time. The mainstream understanding is that this is a specialized form of education, like a finishing school, where girls are prepared for the social and physical requirements of womanhood. As you slide off the camel, the woman herself emerges from the largest tent. She is older, with a commanding presence. She isn't cruel or menacing in her appearance. In fact, she might have a warm, gap-toothed smile. Her own body is a testament to her belief she is large and substantial, moving with a slow, deliberate grace. She is the living embodiment of the ideal you are here to achieve. She greets your father with formal pleasantries, sharing a small cup of tea, the entire exchange calm and businesslike. A transaction is being completed. Your custody is being transferred. Your father gives you a final, brief pat on the shoulder, murmurs a word of encouragement, and then he is gone, his figure shrinking into the shimmering heat. You are left alone, standing before this woman, the architect of your new body. She leads you inside her tent. It's larger than you're used to, and it is here you notice the other girls. There are maybe 3 or 4 of them, all around your age. They are sitting on mats, their faces passive, their eyes downcast. They don't greet you. There is no camaraderie, no whispered chatter. A strange lethargy hangs in the air, a stark contrast to the lively energy of the children in your home camp. They are your fellow students in this strange school. Here's a small, often overlooked detail about these camps. Their existence was an open secret, but also a private, women-only space. Men were generally not welcome. A father or brother would drop a girl off and pick her up, but the process itself was shrouded in a world of female-only knowledge and authority. This created an intense, isolated environment where the practitioner's control was absolute. The outside world, with its distractions and dissenting opinions, was kept at a distance. The woman shows you to your designated mat. It will be your entire world for the foreseeable future. You are not expected to do chores. You are not expected to play. Your only job is to sit, to conserve energy, and to eat. Your freedom of movement, which you had never even thought to value, is now gone. You are, in essence, a beautiful piece of livestock being fattened for the market. The comparison is crude, but it hangs in the silent, heavy air of the tent. The question that historians still grapple with is the degree of variation in these camps. Were they all grim, silent places of methodical force-feeding, as the most dramatic accounts suggest, or did some of them have a softer, more nurturing atmosphere? Oral histories suggest a spectrum. Some women recall their time in these camps with a shudder, describing it as a period of profound misery and physical distress. Others remember it more neutrally, even with a strange sense of pride. They speak of the woman in charge as a strict but fair teacher who was genuinely invested in their future success. They remember the songs she would sing, the stories she would tell to distract them. The reality was likely not monolithic, but depended entirely on the personality and methods of the individual practitioner. For you, sitting on your mat, the only reality is the one in front of you. The other girls are a gallery of your own future. You see their fuller faces, their thicker limbs. You see the listlessness in their eyes. This is not a camp for playing games or sharing secrets. This is a production line, and you are the raw material. The silence in the tent is broken only by the sound of the woman outside, rhythmically pounding grain in a large wooden mortar. It's a steady, relentless sound. It's the sound of your first meal being prepared. The woman in charge, the gavageuse as she might be called in French colonial texts, is not just a cook, she is a technician. She is a specialist whose expertise has been passed down through generations. A craft honed by experience. You watch her as she moves about the camp. Her authority unquestioned. She is your teacher, your warden, and your sculptor all in one. Her name might be Fatima Taracha, but to you, she is simply the expert. Her tools are not complex or intimidating at first glance. They are the mundane, everyday objects of a desert household. There is the large wooden mortar and pestle, its surface worn smooth by years of use, for pounding militant grains into a fine flour. There are the goatskin bags, or gourbiers, used for storing water and milk, keeping them cool in the dry air. There are the heavy wooden bowls, polished to a dark sheen, from which you will eat. Everything is simple, rustic, and brutally effective. But then you notice the other tools, the ones that are specific to her trade. First, there is the funnel, often carved from wood or sometimes made from a large gourd. It's a simple, conical object, but its purpose is ominous. It is a tool for efficiency, designed to get large quantities of liquid milk, water, or a soup heap or a gin to a stomach that is already full. It sits on a shelf, a silent promise of what happens when coaxing is no longer enough. And then there is the most notorious instrument of all. It's a simple, unassuming object, something you might not even notice at first. It consists of two pieces of wood, often sticks, that are bound together at one end. They look like a pair of long, crude tongs or pliers. This device has a specific name in local languages, but its most common description is a foot crusher. Its purpose is not to break bones, but to inflict sharp, targeted pain. It is a tool of persuasion. When a girl refuses to eat or drink, when she cries that she cannot possibly consume another mouthful, the sticks are clamped onto a sensitive part of the body, a toe, a finger, the soft flesh of the inner arm. The pressure is applied, gradually and expertly, until the pain makes swallowing the only viable option. This is the central, stark reality of the Leblouh tradition that is widely documented. It is not a voluntary process. While it begins with cultural conditioning and gentle encouragement, it transitions into a phase of explicit force. The girl's own feelings of fullness or revulsion are not part of the equation. Her body is a project, and the expert is the project manager, tasked with meeting a specific goal. Your compliance is expected, and if not given freely, it will be extracted. But here is a chilling, lesser-known piece of the methodology. The expertise of the practitioner was not just in causing pain, but in understanding the psychology of it. A skilled gavageuse knew exactly how much pressure to apply and for how long. She was a master of brinkmanship. The goal wasn't to injure the girl that would damage the product. The goal was to create a Pavlovian response. After only a few applications of the painful stimulus, the mere sight of the sticks would be enough to make a girl swallow. It was a tool of psychological conditioning as much as physical coercion. The threat of pain became more powerful than the pain itself. You see these tools, and a cold dread, something you have never experienced before, begins to seep into you. This is no longer an abstract concept of beauty or a cultural honor. It is a system of control, with its own logic and its own instruments of enforcement. The expert is not your mother or your aunt. The love and affection that once goaded every offering of food are gone, replaced by a steely, impersonal determination. The academic debate here revolves around the interpretation of this force. Was it viewed, within the culture, as a necessary evil, a form of tough love required to secure a girl's future happiness and prosperity, or was it an accepted, institutionalized form of abuse? Hidden under the cloak of tradition, early ethnographers often framed it as the former, a functional and accepted part of the cultural system. They might describe the process in a detached, matter-of-fact way. emphasizing the end result, the beautiful, marriageable woman. However, more modern, critical perspectives, particularly from feminist scholars and human rights advocates, frame it squarely as the latter. They argue that romanticizing it as culture ignores the profound physical and psychological trauma inflicted upon these young girls. The line between cultural practice and violence is at the very heart of the ongoing scholarly discussion. As evening approaches, the expert calls you and the other girls. She doesn't use a harsh tone. Her voice is level, matter of fact. She gestures for you to sit in a line. The air grows thick with anticipation. The other girls, who had been through this before, adopt a look of resigned stillness. They seem to retreat into themselves, their faces becoming blank masks. You, the newcomer, watch with wide, fearful eyes. The expert ladles a thick, greyish porridge into a wooden bowl. It is your turn to begin your transformation. The tools sit nearby, silent but potent. The lesson is about to start. The bowl is placed in front of you. It's enormous, far larger than any single portion you've ever been served. The contents are a thick, steaming porridge, likely made from pounded millet or barley, mixed with water, and perhaps enriched with a dollop of butter that melts into a greasy, golden pool on top. The smell is heavy, cloying. It's the smell of pure, unadorned calories. This is not a meal meant to be savored, it is fuel, and your body is the tank to be filled. The expert watches you, her eyes missing nothing. There is no gentle coaxing. No, just a few more bites for me. Her silence is an instruction. You pick up the spoon. The first few mouthfuls are manageable. You are hungry. After all, the porridge is bland and has a gritty texture. But it's edible. You eat steadily, trying to show that you are compliant, that you understand your role here. You want to please this woman, to avoid whatever consequences come with refusal. But the bowl seems bottomless. You get halfway through, and the feeling of fullness begins to press against your ribs. It's a familiar sensation, but it soon passes the point of comfort and enters the realm of discomfort. Every swallow becomes a conscious effort. Your stomach feels tight and bloated. You slow down, resting the spoon on the edge of the bowl. Keep eating, the expert says. Her voice is not angry, just firm. It is a simple statement of fact. This is what you do now. You lift the spoon again. Each mouthful is a struggle. The porridge, which was once just bland, now tastes nauseating. Your body is sending you clear. Desperate signals stop. You are full. There is no more room. You look at the other girls. They are eating in a slow, mechanical rhythm, their eyes fixed on a point in the distance, as if they have mentally disconnected from the act. This is a skill they have learned. You put the spoon down again, shaking your head slightly. I can't. You whisper, the words barely audible. I'm full. This is the moment of truth. The expert does not argue or debate. She simply picks up one of her tools for this first challenge. It might not be the painful sticks. It might be the funnel. She takes your bowl, pours the remaining thick slurry into a container, and approaches you. The message is clear: if you will not eat, you will be made to drink. The mainstream knowledge of Leblouh centers on this forced consumption, the overcoming of the body's natural satiety signals. A typical day's diet during this period could be astronomically high in calories. We're talking about multiple liters of camel's milk, which is very rich in fat, and several kilograms of porridge or couscous mixed with butter and oil. Some estimates place the daily intake at over 15,000 calories. To put that in perspective, a male Olympic swimmer in peak training might consume around 10. Serif, it is a colossal amount of food, designed to overwhelm the body's metabolism and force it to store fat rapidly. You shrink back, but there is nowhere to go. Another, older girl might be tasked to hold your hands. The expert is efficient. She pinches your nostrils closed, forcing you to open your mouth to breathe. The funnel is inserted. The thick, lukewarm liquid is poured. You have no choice but to swallow, or you will choke. You swallow, again and again. your throat burning, your stomach churning in protest. Tears stream down your face, but you make no sound. You have learned from the other girl's silence that noise is useless. And here's a bizarre, sad detail of the process: indigestion was not a side effect. It was part of the plan. Vomiting was not tolerated. If a girl threw up, she was often forced to eat her own vomit. This brutal rule was a powerful deterrent, teaching the body, through sheer consequence, to keep the food down, no matter how much it rebelled. It was a way of breaking the spirit of the stomach itself. The funnel is removed. Your first feast is over. You are left gasping, your stomach a painful, swollen drum. The expert moves on to the next girl who is struggling. There is no malice in her actions, only a methodical, impersonal efficiency. She is doing her job. The academic controversy here is a subtle one, focusing on the terminology. The term force feeding is used by most outside observers. However, some cultural apologists and older practitioners have argued against this term, preferring phrases like persuading to eat or assisting with nourishment. They frame it as a necessary technique to help a girl overcome her natural lack of appetite to achieve a culturally valued state. This linguistic debate highlights the vast chasm between an internal, culturally embedded perspective and an external, human rights-focused one. Is it assistance or is it assault? The words used to describe the act fundamentally change how it is perceived, and historians must navigate this carefully, often using the emic insider and detic outsider terms to show both perspectives. For you, there is no debate. As you sit on your mat, cradling your painfully distended stomach, you are not thinking about cultural semantics. You are living the physical reality. The lines have been drawn. Your body is a battlefield, and your own natural instincts have just lost their first major engagement. You now understand that your feelings, your comfort, your very sense of self, are irrelevant to you. There is only the bowl, the expert, and the relentless, non-negotiable goal of getting bigger. The night is the worst. You lie on your mat, but sleep doesn't come easily. Your body is a stranger to you, a vessel filled to the point of bursting. A dull, constant take radiates from your stomach, a relentless pressure that makes it hard to find a comfortable position. You can hear the soft, shallow breathing of the other girls in the tent, a quiet symphony of shared discomfort. The first feast was just the beginning. The next day, the cycle repeats, and the day after that. Your life quickly falls into a monotonous, grueling rhythm, dictated not by the sun, but by the serving bowl. You wake up, you eat, you digest, you eat again. The time between meals is not for rest, but for processing. Your body is working harder than it ever has, not by running or playing, but by simply trying to manage the overwhelming influx of food. You begin to learn about the limits of satiety, and then you learn how to push past them. At first, the feeling of being full is a clear, sharp signal. They roll, but day after day, as you are forced to breach that wall, the signal begins to rot. It becomes a dull, constant background noise. You start to lose touch with your body's own language. Hunger, a feeling you once knew intimately, becomes a distant memory. You are never hungry. You are only ever in varying states of fullness, from painfully full to unbearably full. The expert is a keen observer of your body's rebellion. She knows all the tricks a desperate stomach can play. She knows how to spot a girl trying to feign swallowing, or one hiding a mouthful of food in her cheeks to spit out later. Her vigilance is absolute. This is where you truly understand that Leblouh is a battle against biology. Your body is designed to maintain a state of equilibrium, of homeostasis. The endocrine system, with hormones like leptin and ghrelin, works to regulate hunger and fullness, telling your brain when you've had enough. The process you are undergoing is a direct assault on this elegant, self-regulating system. You are being forced to ignore every instinct, to override every biological safeguard that nature has put in place to prevent you from eating yourself into a state of distress. This is the core, scientifically understood mechanism of the weight gain of forced, sustained caloric surplus that overwhelms the body's ability to regulate itself. And then comes the day when the porridge and the funnel are not enough to overcome your resistance. You are so full, you feel you might actually tear apart from the inside. You refuse. You clamp your mouth shut. You turn your head, tears of pure physical misery streaming down your face. This is not defiance born of will, but of sheer physical impossibility. The expert shows no frustration. She simply puts down the bowl and picks up the 2 wooden sticks. The Zayir. She approaches you with the same calm, methodical air she does everything else. She takes your foot in her hand. The other girls in the tent don't watch, but a palpable tension fills the air. They know what is coming. She places your big toe between the 2 sticks and begins to apply pressure. It's not a sudden, violent crack. It's a slow, grinding, inexorable squeeze. At first, it's just an uncomfortable pressure, but it quickly blossoms into a sharp, undeniable pain. It's a focused, brilliant agony that eclipses the dull ache in your stomach. It shoots up your leg, demanding all of your attention. You gasp, trying to pull your foot away, but her grip is like iron. "Swallow," she says, her voice still level. Another girl is there with a spoonful of porridge at your lips. The choice is brutally simple: the sharp, immediate pain in your toe, or the nauseating discomfort of one more swallow. Your brain, in a desperate act of self-preservation, chooses the lesser of 2 evils. You open your mouth. You swallow. The pressure on your toe is immediately released. The relief is instantaneous and profound. This is your listening to Yayar. The word itself, in some contexts, can mean to tether or to hobble an animal. Here, it's a verb of enforcement. Here's a peculiar and disturbing tidbit about this practice: the pain was often applied with a deep understanding of anatomy. The practitioners knew the most sensitive spots: the toes, the fingers, the thin skin of the elbow, or the area under the kneecap. They were, in their own way, experts in non-lethal torture. The goal was maximum pain with minimum visible damage. A bruised toe was a small price to pay for ensuring the daily calorie quota was met. It was a calculated, functional cruelty. The academic world still debates the psychological impact of this. How does a child rationalize this experience? How do they reconcile the person inflicting this pain with the cultural narrative that this is for their own good? For their own beauty, some psychological theories suggest a process of dissociation, where the girl learns to mentally separate herself from her physical body. Her body becomes an object, a project being worked on, and the pain is happening to it, not to her. This coping mechanism might allow her to endure the process, but it could also create a lifelong disconnect between mind and body, a chasm of trauma that might never fully heal. The long-term mental health consequences are a field of study that is still developing as more women are willing to share their experiences. After the Zayir is used on you for the first time, something inside you breaks. It's the last bit of your rebellious spirit. You have learned the rule of this new world: the body's protest is futile. The pain in your stomach is a constant, but the pain from the sticks is a variable that you can control. And so, you learn to eat. You eat past the point of pain, past the point of reason. You eat until the expert is satisfied. You have been tamed. The battle for your body is over, and you have lost. Or, from the expert's point of view, you have finally begun to win. You have now mastered the art of surrender. The Zayir is no longer a frequent tool, because the mere sight of it is enough. The expert can simply place it on the mat beside her, and your compliance is guaranteed. The lesson has been learned, etched not just into your memory, but into your very reflexes. Your mind has been conditioned to override your body's screams of protest. This is the grim reality behind a term you will learn later: Zayir. It is the name for the specific method of pain compliance. It's a word that encapsulates the entire system of coercion in a single, guttural sound. When women who have been through this process talk about it, this is the word they use, their voices often dropping to a whisper. It is the dark heart of the tradition, the mechanism that makes the impossible consumption possible. The knowledge of ZAYR is a defining, shared experience for those who have been through a former Leblouh. Your days become a blur, a monotonous cycle of eating and sitting. Wait, eat, sit, digest, eat, sit, digest, sleep. If you can, the sun rises and sets, but it means little to you. Your world has shrunk to the confines of the tent, to the space on your mat. You are forbidden from running, from walking more than a few necessary steps. Every calorie must be conserved. Every ounce of energy must be directed towards the singular goal of growth. The diet is relentless. It's not just the porridge. In the mid-morning, a large bowl of fresh camel's milk is brought, thick and frothy. You must drink it all. In the afternoon, another meal, perhaps couscous, glistening with oil or melted butter, sometimes with a few pieces of fatty mutton mixed in. And then, before sleep, another round of milk or porridge. The sheer volume is staggering. It's a constant, never-ending flood of nourishment. This intensive feeding schedule is the widely understood core of the practice. The goal is rapid, shocking weight gain. You are essentially in a human version of a biological experiment, a test of the body's maximum capacity for fat storage. It is a methodical, almost scientific, assault on your metabolism. Here's a small, curious detail about the diet that illustrates its single-mindedness. There was often little concern for balanced nutrition, vegetables and fruits, which were scarce in the desert environment to begin with, were not a priority. The focus was purely on calories and fat. This could lead to a strange paradox. A girl could be simultaneously obese and malnourished, lacking essential vitamins and minerals even as she consumed thousands of calories a day. The goal was size, not necessarily health in the modern sense of the word. You watch the other girls, and you see your own future. The change is slow, but undeniable. Their faces lose their sharp, childish angles, softening into roundness. Their limbs thicken. They begin to move with a new, slow deliberation, not just because they are forbidden from exertion, but because movement itself becomes more difficult. Their bodies are becoming heavier, more cumbersome, and you start to feel it in yourself. Your clothes become tight. The simple act of getting up from your mat requires a new kind of effort. You feel a constant, low-grade exhaustion, the result of your body working overtime to process the food and build new tissue. This is the beginning of your transformation. The prison of flesh is being built, cell by cell. The academic debate surrounding this stage of the process often centers on its historical consistency. Was the Leblouh of the 19th century identical to the Leblouh of the 20th century? Some historical accounts suggest that the practice became even more intense and systematic during the colonial period. French and Spanish colonial administrators, with their obsession for classification and order, documented the practice extensively. Some scholars argue that this outside attention may have inadvertently fossilized or even intensified the tradition. As local communities asserted their cultural identity in the face of foreign rule, others argue the opposite, that the introduction of Western medicine and education began a slow process of erosion. The question remains, did the tradition stay static for centuries, or has it been in a constant state of flux, adapting and changing with the tides of history? For you, trapped in the timeless bubble of the fattening tent, history is irrelevant. There is only the present moment, and the next bowl. The psychological impact of this routine is profound. The boredom is immense. A heavy blanket that smothers your thoughts. To cope, you retreat into your mind. You might spend hours replaying memories of your life before, of running free in the sand, of playing games with your siblings. These memories become a precious, secret hoard, a place of refuge where your body is still your own. But that refuge is temporary. You are always called back to the present by the clatter of the bowl, by the firm, unwavering voice of the expert. The outside world fades away. Your family, your home, they seem like a dream you once had. This tent, this map, this cycle of consumption, this is your reality now. You are no longer a person in the way you once understood it. You are a project, and you are slowly, inexorably, nearing completion. The days melt into one another, each one a mirror of the last. The sun bakes the sand outside the tent, the light shifting through the canvas walls. But inside, time has lost its shape. It is measured only by the arrival of the next meal. Morning porridge, midday milk, afternoon couscous, evening milk. The rhythm is as relentless and unchangeable as a heartbeat. There is no weekend, no holiday, no break from the singular, all-consuming task of eating. You have become adept at the process. You no longer fight, no longer weep. You have learned the art of mental retreat. As you lift the spoon to your mouth, you let your mind drift away. You go back to the stories your grandmother used to tell, tales of clever djinn and brave warriors. You recite the verses of poems you learned as a child. You create a small, protected space deep inside yourself where the reality of what is happening to your body cannot fully penetrate. It's a survival mechanism, a silent, internal rebellion. The other girls do the same. A profound silence often hangs in the tent, not of peace, but of shared endurance. Each girl is alone in her own mental fortress, quietly weathering the storm. There are no friendships forged in this crucible, no bonds of sisterly solidarity. The experience is too internal, too isolating. You are comrades in circumstance, but strangers in spirit. Your shared ordeal is a wall between you, not a bridge. This relentless, monotonous routine is the core of the fattening process, as understood by historians and ethnographers. It's a period of intense, sustained overconsumption designed to overwhelm the body's natural metabolic processes. The goal is to create a state of constant energy surplus, forcing the body to store every possible calorie as adipose tissue. It is a biological blitzkrieg. You feel the changes in your body not as a sudden event, but as a slow, creeping tide. One morning you wake up and your ankles have vanished, absorbed into the thickening columns of your lower legs. Your wrists, once bony, are now soft, cushioned with flesh. Your face in the small, cracked mirror you are occasionally allowed to see is no longer your own. It is the face of a stranger, round and full. The features you once knew softened into a new geography. And here's a little known practical side effect of this process: the logistics of sanitation. In an environment where movement was so heavily restricted, and with a diet so extreme, managing basic bodily functions became a challenge. The girls were often not allowed to walk to a designated private area. Instead, a trench might be dug inside or just outside the tent, or simple pots were used. This detail, often omitted from more romanticized accounts, highlights the sheer pragmatism and the stripping away of dignity that was part of the process. It underscores the reduction of the girls to simple biological machines, whose inputs and outputs were managed with impersonal efficiency. You are constantly tired. It's a deep, bone-wearying fatigue that has nothing to do with physical exertion. It's the exhaustion of a body working overtime. A factory running 24/7 with no downtime. Your heart has to work harder to pump blood through your expanding network of blood vessels. Your joints begin to ache under the new, unfamiliar weight. Simple actions, like rolling over on your mat, become a conscious effort. The academic debate on this topic sometimes touches upon the success rate. Did every girl respond to the treatment in the same way? The answer is no. Genetics played a significant role. Some girls, due to their natural metabolism, would gain weight more easily and quickly. They were the star pupils. Others would struggle, their bodies resisting the process more stubbornly. These girls might endure the regimen for longer, or face harsher enforcement. As the expert worked to produce the promised result, This biological variation is a crucial factor that is not always acknowledged in generalized descriptions of the practice. It meant that the ordeal, while shared, was not identical for every girl. The duration and intensity of her suffering could depend on her own unique genetic lottery. The expert monitors your progress with a practiced, critical eye. She is like a sculptor examining her work in progress. She might pinch the flesh on your arm, or feel the growing thickness of your thighs, nodding with satisfaction or clucking her tongue with impatience. You are clay on her potter's wheel, and she is shaping you, pound by pound, into the form dictated by her culture. Sometimes, in the dead of night, you lie awake and you can feel your own heartbeat, a heavy, labored thud in your chest. You feel the weight of your own limbs, the unfamiliar landscape of your own body. You are disappearing, being buried alive under layers of yourself. The girl you were, the one who could run for miles without getting breathless, the one who could climb the gnarled acacia tree near the well, is gone. In her place is this new being, this soft, heavy, slow-moving creature, and you know, with a chilling certainty, that there is no going back. The cycle will continue, day after day, until the expert decides that the masterpiece is complete. There comes a point where the transformation is no longer just a feeling of fullness or a number on a scale that doesn't exist here. It becomes a physical reality that changes your relationship with the world. Your body, once a vehicle for experiencing life, starts to feel like a cage, a soft, ever-present prison. It begins with small things. You try to cross your legs while sitting on the mat, a simple, unconscious gesture you've done your whole life. But now, your thighs are too thick. They meet, resisting the motion. It's a small, surprising moment of rebellion from your own form. You try to scratch an itch on your back, but your arm, now padded with soft flesh, doesn't have the same range of motion. You can't quite reach the spot. These are the first hints of a new reality. Your body is becoming a place of limitations. The freedom you once took for granted, the easy, thoughtless way you move through space, is being systematically taken from you. You are becoming encased in yourself. The mainstream understanding of Leblouh focuses on the visual outcome, the creation of a large, voluptuous body, but the internal, sensory experience of that body is often overlooked. It's not just about being fat. It's about how that new mass changes your fundamental experience of being human. Your center of gravity shifts. Your balance is different. Your relationship with the ground beneath you is altered. Walking, on the rare occasions you are allowed to, becomes a slow, deliberate waddle. Each step is an effort. The weight of your body pressing down on your aching joints, your ankles, your knees, your hips. You get breathless after only a few yards. The world, which once felt open and accessible, has shrunk. The distance to the edge of the camp, which you could have sprinted across as a child, now seems like a monumental journey. This is the slow, creeping horror of the process. It's not a sudden violence, but a gradual erosion of your physical autonomy. You are being tamed, not just in spirit, but in flesh. A fast-moving, agile girl is seen as wild, untamed. A slow, heavy, sedentary woman is seen as placid, stable, undomesticated. The physical confinement creates the desired social characteristic. Here's a bizarre and poignant detail that emerges from some women's testimonies: the phantom limb sensation. But, in reverse, some talk about a feeling of phantom thinness, lying on their mats. They would close their eyes and could still feel, in their mind's muscle memory, what it was like to be light and quick. They could feel the ghost of their old body, a memory of freedom that made their current physical confinement all the more acute. It was a form of psychological torture inflicted by their own memory. Your body becomes a constant source of discomfort. The heat of the day is more oppressive, trapped in the layers of your skin. You chafe. Rashes develop in the new folds of your body. Simple hygiene becomes a complicated task. You are utterly dependent on the expert, or one of the other girls, for help with basic things you have always done for yourself. This dependency is part of the process, infantilizing you, breaking down your sense of self-reliance. You are being remade into someone who is soft, helpless, and in need of constant care, a state that is perversely seen as attractive. The academic debate on this topic delves into the intersection of culture and disability from a modern, Western medical perspective. The state being induced is one of morbid obesity, with all of its associated health risks and mobility issues. In essence, a state of disability is being intentionally created. However, within the traditional context, this was not seen as a disability at all. In fact, the opposite was true. The inability to move quickly was a sign of high status. It meant you didn't have to work. You had servants or family members to do things for you. Your lack of mobility was a form of conspicuous leisure. So is it a disability? The answer depends entirely on the cultural lens through which you view it. Scholars argue about whether it's appropriate to apply modern medical labels to a traditional practice that had its own, internally consistent logic and value system. You spend hours just sitting, feeling the weight of your own body. You press a finger into the soft flesh of your arm and watch the indentations slowly disappear. It's like poking a doughy, unresponsive substance. It doesn't feel like you. It's just flesh. A heavy, burdensome coat that you can never take off. You see your reflection in a bowl of water and you have to look twice to recognize the person staring back. The eyes are yours, but they are sunk into a round, puffy face. The expression in them is one of resigned weariness. The girl you were is a ghost, a distant skull. The prison is almost complete. It has no bars, no locks, no walls of stone. It is made of you, and the most terrifying part is that everyone, except you, calls it beautiful. One day, the expert is examining you. It's not the usual brief, cursory check. She is more meticulous. She has you stand up. A task that now requires a significant, breathy effort. She walks around you slowly, her critical eyes scanning your new form. She nods, a rare and subtle sign of approval. Then, she points to your hips and thighs. Look, she says, her voice holding a note of professional pride. You look down, and you see them. Faint, silvery lines that fan out across your skin, like tiny rivers etched into the landscape of your body. They are stretch marks, only Leblouh. The very name of the tradition is sometimes said to refer to these marks. In the world you came from, these would be seen as an imperfection, something to be hidden or treated with creams and oils. Here, they are a cause for celebration. The expert traces one of the lines with her finger. The jewels of a woman's body. She murmurs, proof of her family's love. This is the moment you have been working towards, the first tangible sign of success. These marks, these tiny tears in the dermis of your skin, are the ultimate status symbol. They are the visible proof that you have grown so quickly and so much that your skin could not keep up. They are a testament to the sheer volume of milk and porridge, the undeniable evidence of your family's wealth. A woman without them is like a warrior without scars untested, hurt are you unproven. This veneration of stretch marks is perhaps the most striking and well-known aspect of the traditional aesthetic. It represents a complete inversion of Western beauty standards. They are not flaws, they are accolades. They all read like a text, telling a story of honor, wealth, and a life of pampered ease. The other girls are brought over to see. They look at your skin with a mixture of envy and respect. You are the first in this group to have blossomed so clearly. The expert's praise makes you feel a strange, conflicted emotion. A part of you, the part that has been conditioned by weeks of this grueling ordeal, feels a flicker of pride. You have succeeded. You have met the goal. You have pleased your keeper. But another, deeper part of you feels only a profound sadness. These jewels are the scars of your confinement, the marks of your body's surrender. And here is a small, curious piece of information related to this. The beautification didn't stop at the marks themselves. In some traditions, these stretch marks would be further embellished. They might be rubbed with special oils to make them shimmer, or even colored with henna or other dyes to make them more prominent, especially for a wedding or other festive occasion. They weren't just to be accepted, they were to be highlighted, displayed, and celebrated as the pinnacle of feminine beauty. They were body art, created through suffering. The expert announces that you are nearing the end of your time with her. The most intense phase of the gavage is over. The diet will be slightly reduced now, shifting from aggressive expansion to maintenance. You have reached the desired plateau. You are a finished product. The news brings a wave of relief so powerful it almost makes you dizzy. But it's a tainted relief. You are graduating, but you are not graduating back to your old life. You can never go back. You are graduating into a new existence, one defined by the very body that has been so painstakingly constructed. The academic debate here focuses on the semiotics of the body. How does a culture read a body? Scholars in anthropology and cultural studies argue that the body is a text, and every culture has its own rules for interpreting it. In this context, the fact stretch-marked female body is a text that communicates complex messages about social class, economic stability, and family honor. The debate gets interesting when considering how this reading has changed over time, as Mauritania and surrounding regions have urbanized and been exposed to global media. The language of the body has started to shift. A younger generation might now read the same body and see not wealth and honor, but health problems and a lack of modernity. The same text, to completely different interpretations, leading to a cultural conflict played out on the bodies of women. You are allowed more freedom now. You can walk around the camp, though you don't have the energy or inclination to go far. The expert is kinder, her tone softer. She has succeeded in her commission, and her professional pride is evident. She might even share a joke with you. The power dynamic has shifted slightly. You are no longer just a pupil, you are her masterpiece, the proof of her skill. You look at your own skin, at the silvery marks that adorn your hips and stomach. You are supposed to see beauty, honor, wealth. You are supposed to feel pride. But as you trace one of the lines with your own finger, you can't shake the feeling that you are looking at the bars of your own beautiful, celebrated cage. They are the map of your undoing, the trophy for a battle you were never meant to win. As your time in the fattening camp winds down, the nature of your education changes. The physical ordeal is replaced by a psychological one, the force-feeding lessons. But a new kind of indoctrination begins. The expert, your warden, now becomes your bard. In the long, hot afternoons, she gathers you and the other graduating girls, and she tells you stories. These are not the children's fables of your youth. These are the foundational myths of your culture's aesthetic. She recites ancient poems, long, flowing verses that have been passed down through generations. The poems don't speak of women who are brave warriors or cunning queens. They sing praises to women who are as substantial as the earth, as calm as a deep well. You listen to verses describing the perfect woman. Her neck is supposed to have 3 distinct, soft rolls of flesh. Her thighs, so full they ripple when she walks, are compared to the majestic, shifting sand dunes of the Sahara. Her stomach, soft and rounded, is a symbol of her generosity and capacity for life. Her walk is not a walk, but a graceful sway, a slow, mesmerizing dance dictated by her own magnificent weight. This is a well-documented aspect of the culture, a rich oral tradition of poetry and song that exists to legitimize and romanticize the very physical state you have been forced to achieve. It's a powerful form of propaganda, turning the physical symptoms of obesity into poetic virtues. The breathlessness you feel after a few steps, that's not a sign of poor health, it's a becoming stillness. The heavy lethargy that blankets your days, that's placid grace. The expert also sings songs. They are tsui or fattening songs. The melodies are simple, hypnotic. The lyrics are repetitive, reinforcing the same ideals. They might tell the story of a famous beauty from the past, a woman so large and magnificent that men would fight for her hand. They might sing of the shame of thinness, comparing a slender woman to a stick in the sand or a starving goat. The songs and poems are a constant, gentle brainwashing. They are designed to reframe your entire experience. The pain you endure, the loss of freedom, the daily misery, all of it is cast in a heroic light. You weren't a victim, you were an acolyte participating in a sacred ritual of beauty. You weren't being force-fed, you were being sculpted by love. Here's a curious, specific detail about this old tradition. Sometimes, the poems were competitive. Rival poets would try to outdo each other in their elaborate, metaphorical descriptions of female beauty. One poet might compare a woman's stretch marks to rivers of milk, while another would counter with the image of lightning bolts on a moonlit sky. This poetic rivalry helped to keep the aesthetic ideal alive and vibrant in the cultural imagination, constantly renewing and reinforcing its vocabulary of beauty. You sit and listen, the words washing over you, and a strange thing happens. You begin to believe them, or at least, a part of you does. The constant, repetitive messaging starts to seep in, filling the void left by your broken will. Perhaps she is right. Perhaps this heavy, cumbersome body is a beautiful thing. Perhaps the jewels on your skin are something to be proud of. The narrative is so powerful, so all-encompassing, that to resist it feels like madness. Everyone you know and respect believes it. Who are you to say they are wrong? This psychological conditioning is a crucial, and often debated, part of the process. Did the girls and women truly internalize these values? Or did they simply learn to perform the role expected of them? This is a central question for historians and psychologists. Some argue for a true believer model, where the indoctrination is so complete that the women genuinely adopt the aesthetic as their own, feeling pride in their size. Others propose a model of strategic conformity, where women learn to publicly praise the ideal because it is socially advantageous, while privately harboring feelings of resentment or discomfort. The truth is likely a complex spectrum, with individual women falling at different points between genuine belief and pragmatic performance. As you listen to the poems, you look at your own body. You see the thick ankles, the full arms, the rounded stomach. You try to see them through the poet's eyes. You try to see sand dunes and crescent moons instead of just flesh. It's a difficult mental exercise. The memory of your former, agile body is a persistent ghost, a whisper of dissent in the back of your mind. But the stories are so beautiful. They offer you a way to make sense of your suffering, to give it meaning on purpose. To reject the poems would be to admit that the last few months of your life were nothing but a brutal, meaningless ordeal. To accept them is to believe that you have been transformed into a work of art. And so, you choose to believe, or you choose to try. You practice the graceful sway when you walk. You hold your head in a way that emphasizes the soft rolls of your neck. You are learning not just to have the body, but to inhabit it in the culturally approved way. You are learning your lines, preparing for the role you will play for the rest of your life. The physical fattening is over. The mental fattening has just begun. One evening, as the air finally cools and the stars begin to blanket the immense, soylent sky, the expert tells a different kind of story. It's not a poem praising the beauty of a full figure. It's a history lesson. Though she wouldn't call it that. It's the why behind everything you've endured. She speaks of the great droughts, the shared GUII tools, the hot, dry winds that would blow for months, withering the sparse vegetation and drying up the wells. She talks of times, perhaps in her own grandmother's memory, when the rains failed for years in a row. The herds of goats and camels would thin and die, the grain stores would empty. The shadow of hunger was not a metaphor, it was a real, tangible threat that shaped every aspect of life. In those times, she explains, a man's wealth was not in gold or land, but in his livestock, and a man's family's survival was visibly demonstrated by the bodies of his wife and daughters. A thin wife was a terrifying sight. It meant the family's resources were gone, that they were on the brink of starvation. A thin daughter was unmarriageable, a sign that her family could not provide for her, let alone offer a dowry. She was a walking advertisement of their poverty and desperation. But a third wife, she says, her voice slow and resonant, was a fortress. She was a symbol of life, of resilience. Her body was a testament to her husband's ability to provide, even in the harshest of times. She was a walk-in, breathing storehouse of calories, a promise of continuity. Her size was a shield against the existential terror of famine. A man with a fat wife and fat daughters was a king, his success undeniable, his future secure. This is the most widely accepted historical and anthropological explanation for the origins of Leblouh. It is a direct cultural adaptation to a harsh environment of scarcity. In a world where famine is a recent and recurring collective memory, fatness is not about aesthetics in a vacuum, it's about survival. The beauty standard is deeply intertwined with the primal fear of starvation. A large body is beautiful because it represents the opposite of death and deprivation. It is a symbol of life, security, and power. You listen, and for the first time, the brutal logic of the practice begins to click into place. It's not just an arbitrary, cruel tradition. It is the product of a deep-seated, historical trauma. The memory of hunger is so profound that the culture has overcompounded it, creating a ritual designed to build a human bulwark against it. The force-feeding, the immobility, the poetic praise, it's all part of an elaborate defense mechanism against the specter of famine. Here's a lesser-known but fascinating extension of this idea. Some anthropologists have noted a similar, though less extreme, aesthetic preference in other pre-industrial societies that have faced periodic famine. The European Renaissance, for example, celebrated plump, Rubenesque figures. This wasn't just a random artistic whim. In an era where food security was not guaranteed for most, a full figure was also a sign of wealth and health. The Mauritanian tradition can be seen as an extreme, ritualized expression of a more widespread human tendency to associate surplus body fat with prosperity in times of scarcity. As the expert speaks, you look around at the other girls, at your own transformed body. You are the descendants of survivors. Your ancestors were the ones who endured the droughts, who figured out how to thrive in one of the world's most unforgiving environments. This tradition, as harsh as it is part of their legacy. It's a survival strategy passed down through generations, encoded not in books, but on the bodies of their daughters. However, this is where a key academic debate arises. While the famine hypothesis is a powerful explanation for the origins of the practice, is it sufficient to explain its persistence in the modern era in recent decades? Famine has become much rarer in the region due to international aid, government programs, and a changing economy. Yet the tradition, while waning, persists. So why? Some scholars argue that the practice has become decoupled from its original survivalist rationale. It now functions primarily as a symbol of cultural identity and tradition, a way of resisting the homogenizing forces of globalization. It's not about famine anymore, it's about being a true Mauritanian, adhering to the ways of the ancestors. Others argue that it has morphed into a system of pure social status, a display of wealth that has little to do with hunger, but everything to do with conspicuous consumption. The debate is about whether the tradition is still driven by the ghost of famine or by more contemporary social pressures. The expert story doesn't cover these modern complexities. Her narrative is clean and powerful. It is a story of strength, of how her people stared into the face of hunger and created beauty out of abundance. She is giving you a noble lineage for your suffering. You are not just a fat girl. You are a living monument to your people's victory over the desert. As you lie on your mat that night, the story echoes in your mind. The constant ache in your joints, the chafing of your skin, the weight that presses you into the mat. She has given you a new way to frame it all. It is the weight of history. It is the price of your ancestors' survival. The idea is both comforting and deeply unsettling. It makes your personal ordeal feel both small and monumentally significant at the same time. You are a single link in a long, heavy chain, stretching back into the hungry past. The day comes when your father returns to the camp. He is not alone. With him is another man, older, with a look of quiet authority. You are told to put on the best clothes you have. The expert herself helps you, dressing you in layers of fine, colorful fabric. The Leblouh, which drapes over your body, hinting at the substance beneath without revealing it completely. Heavy silver bracelets are placed on your wrists, and the weighty anklets you were given so long ago are polished until they gleam. You are presented. You are told to walk from one end of the tent to the other. You do so wishing you a pleasant experience, slowly, deliberately, trying to imitate the graceful sway the expert has taught you. Your movements are heavy, ponderous. Your gaze is kept demurely downcast. You are acutely aware of the men's eyes on you. They are not looking at you, the person. They are observing a valuable object. They are assessing a prize. The older man, the visitor, watches your every move. He notes the thickness of your ankles. He sees the way the flesh on your arms creates soft folds at the elbow. He observes your slow, labored breathing, and he nods. This is the male gaze. But it's a very specific version of it. It's not looking for the markers of beauty you might have once understood. It is a gaze that measures wealth, status, and health through the culturally accepted lens of size. It is the gaze of a potential suitor, or the shadow of one. This is the ultimate purpose of your transformation. All the pain, all the porridge, all the poems, it was all leading to this moment. You have been cultivated like a prize crop, and now it is time for the harvest. Your body has been prepared as a dowry, an offering, and a status symbol for the man you will eventually marry. The mainstream historical view is clear. Leblouh was, at its core, a function of the marriage market. An unfattened girl had poor prospects. A fattened girl was a prime candidate, capable of securing a powerful and prosperous match. The men drink tea and talk in low voices. You are not part of the conversation. You are the subject of it. You sit quietly on your mat, a silent, beautifully wrapped package. You feel a strange detachment, as if you are watching a scene from someone else's life. This body, which has been the sole focus of your existence for months, has now fulfilled its primary purpose to be seen and approved of by a man. And here's a lesser known but crucial detail of this transaction. While the suitor's approval was paramount, the girl's opinion was traditionally considered irrelevant. However, in some communities, there was a subtle form of female agency. The women of the suitor's family, his mother and aunts, would often conduct their own separate inspection. They would be looking for things the men might miss: the quality of the girl's skin, the whiteness of her teeth, and, most importantly, the authenticity of her size. They were experts at spotting a false fattening, where a girl might be temporarily bloated with water rather than genuinely built with fattened flesh. The approval of these matriarchs was often just as important as the man's, as they were the ones who would have to live and interact with the new bride. Their gaze was, in its own way, even more critical and discerning. You feel the weight of their judgment, a heavy cloak of expectation. The poems and stories told you that this body would bring you honor and make you desirable. And now, you see the proof. The man is clearly impressed. His gaze is one of approval, of seeing something that meets and perhaps exceeds his expectations. But this raises a complex academic question that scholars of gender studies frequently discuss. Is this a form of empowerment or objectification? On one hand, a woman's body becomes her primary source of social capital. A successful body gives her access to wealth, status, and security that would otherwise be unattainable. In a patriarchal society, this could be seen as a form of strategic power. On the other hand, it reduces her entire being to her physical form. Her intelligence, her personality, her dreams, all are secondary to her weight. She becomes a beautiful object, a symbol of her husband's status, but her own personhood is erased. This paradox is at the heart of the debate. Is she a queen on a pedestal or a bird in a gilded cage? The men finish their tea. The visitor stands up, shares a formal farewell with your father, and leaves. There is no immediate announcement, no contract signed in your presence, but you know what has happened. A connection has been made. A potential future has been set in motion. After they are gone, the expert gives you a rare, genuine smile. You have made your family proud, she says. You look down at your hands, resting on your voluminous lap. You are supposed to feel happy, triumphant. You have passed the test. You have been deemed worthy, but the only thing you feel is a profound and hollow emptiness. You have been shaped, sculpted, and now you have been appraised and approved. Your body is a success, but you, the person trapped inside it, feel like you have vanished completely. The gaze of the man did not see you at all. It's all a magnificent prison he might one day own. Your time at the fattening camp is officially over. You are going home. The return journey is vastly different from the one that brought you here. You are no longer a frightened, uncertain girl. You are a finished product, a walking masterpiece of cultural ideals. Your family sends not one camel, but perhaps several, as a show of respect for your new status. You are helped onto the camel with great care, your new bulk making the process a slow and deliberate effort. When you arrive at your family's camp, it is not a quiet homecoming. It's a celebration. The women of your family rush out to greet you, their voices loud with praise and admiration. They circle you, touching your arms, your cheeks, their hands confirming what their eyes can see. Mashallah, what a beauty! Your grandmother exclaims, her eyes shining with pride. You are a true treasure of our line. Your mother looks at you, her face a complex mixture of love, pride, and something else, a flicker of shared memory. Of knowing the price you paid, she hugs you, a gesture that is now different. She is hugging a new person, a woman. This triumphant return is a key part of the Leblouh ritual. It's the public unveiling. The investment has paid off, and now it is time to display the result. You have entered the next phase of your life. You are now on the marriage market. Your ripeness is now your single most important attribute. In a society with no formal channels for advertising a daughter's availability, your newly transformed body is the advertisement. It announces to the entire community that you are of age, from a good family, and ready to be wed. You are now the center of attention. You are seated in a place of honor in the family tent. You are served the best food first. Though your appetite is now a pale shadow of what it once was, you are not expected to do any chores. Your role is simply to be present, to be seen. You are a living work of art on display. Over the next few weeks, a steady stream of visitors comes to your family's tent. They come on the pretext of sharing tea or catching up on news, but their true purpose is to see you. The mothers of unmarried sons come to appraise you. They are the scouts of the desert marriage market. They observe you with sharp, discerning eyes, noting your size, your placid demeanor, the shimmering stretch marks on any visible skin. They are assessing your value as a potential daughter-in-law, a future mother of their grandchildren. Here's a peculiar, almost theatrical detail about this period of display. A girl in your position would be encouraged to show off her bulk in subtle, codified ways. She might be asked to fetch something from the other side of the tent, purely so the visitors could watch her walk and admire her heavy, swaying gait. She might be given a bowl of milk to hold, the better to display the thick, fleshy softness of her arms and wrists. Every gesture was a performance, a carefully choreographed demonstration of her prize-winning physique. You play your part. You move slowly. You speak softly. You keep your eyes downcast. You are performing the role of the ideal woman, the one from the poems and songs. Inside, you might feel a storm of anxiety or resentment, but on the outside, you are the picture of calm, heavy grace. The academic debate here touches on economics, specifically the concept of symbolic capital developed by sociologist Pierre Bourdieu. Your body has become your primary form of symbolic capital. It doesn't have a direct monetary value, but it can be converted into other forms of capital, a marriage, to a wealthy family economic capital, and the elevated social standing that comes with its social capital. The debate among scholars is about how consciously and strategically families manage this asset. Was it a cold, calculated business transaction? Or was it so deeply embedded in the cultural fabric that the participants themselves saw it only as a matter of tradition and honor, not as a marketplace transaction? The days are long and strange. You are treated like a queen, but you feel like a prisoner in a more luxurious cell. Your friends from before you left, the ones who were not chosen for the fattening, look at you differently. There is a new distance between you. They are still girls, free to run and play. You are something else entirely. You belong to the world of the adults, of marriage negotiations and family alliances. You overhear the hushed conversations of your parents, the names of different families being mentioned. Your future is being negotiated, your value being assessed. You are a prize, and the bidding has begun. The men who come to visit with your father look at you with an owner's eye. They are not seeing a partner, a companion. They are seeing a beautiful, valuable acquisition that will enhance their own prestige. You have become a silent symbol, a testament to your family's success. Your body is no longer your own private experience, it is a public statement. And soon, that statement will be transferred to another family, another man. You have been fattened for the market, and the market is now in full swing. The negotiations are over. A match has been made. The announcement is met with celebration. The loud, joyful ululations of the women echoing through the camp. You are to be married. The chosen groom is from a respected family, a man whose wealth and status are a good match for the value your body represents. You may have never spoken to him, perhaps only glimpsed him once from a distance. It doesn't matter. This is not a union of hearts, it is an alliance of households. The preparations for the wedding begin immediately. It is a frantic, exciting time for everyone but you. For you, it is a period of passive waiting. You are the centerpiece, the prized object around which all the activity revolves. Your role is to be beautified, decorated, and prepared for the final presentation. Your skin is scrubbed with traditional exfoliants unsoftened with shea butter and oils. Your hands and feet are intricately decorated with henna. The dark patterns are stark, beautiful contrast against your skin. Your hair is braided and perfumed. You are being polished like a precious gem for display. The wedding itself is not a single day, but a multi-day affair of feasting and celebration. It is a massive public event, and the most important exhibit is you. The primary purpose of the wedding ceremony, from a traditional standpoint, is to display the bride and, through her, the wealth and honor of both families. Your family is showing off the magnificent gift they are giving, and the groom's family is showing off the magnificent treasure they have acquired. On the main day of the celebration, you are dressed in your finest Mula FAS, layers of expensive, brightly colored cloth that are a symbol of wealth in themselves. You are adorned with all the family's silver heavy necklaces, bracelets that climb up your arms, and the ever-present, weighty anklets. You are a walking bank vault, a physical manifestation of your family's prosperity. You are seated on a decorated platform, on display for all the guests to see. You are expected to sit for hours, still and placid, a serene, magnificent statue. Guests file past, admiring you openly, commenting on your size and beauty. Her family is honored her. They will say, her husband is a lucky man. Here is a specific, peculiar ritual that was sometimes part of the wedding celebration, the dance of the bride. It was not a dance in the energetic sense. You would be helped to your feet by female relatives. You would then perform a slow, subtle swaying of your hips and arms, a minimalist dance designed to showcase the ripple of your flesh. It was a performance of heaviness, a deliberate demonstration of your magnificent, cultivated bulk. The less you move, the more graceful it was considered. You go through the motions in a dreamlike haze. The sounds of the drums, the singing, the laughter of the guests, it all seems to be happening at a great distance. You are the queen of the festival, but you are also its captive. Your body, the source of all this celebration, feels like a heavy, ornate costume that you can't take off. This is where academic analysis often focuses on the concept of ritual. A wedding is a rite of passage, marking your transition from daughter to wife. But in this context, the ritual is heavily focused on the transaction and display of property. Anthropologists might analyze the different stages of the wedding: the henna, the dressing, the display. The dance is a structured performance designed to legitimize the transfer of this valuable asset from one patrilineal group to another. The entire event is a piece of social theater, reinforcing the patriarchal structure and the economic underpinnings of the marriage system. The debate often centers on how much the emotional or personal aspects of marriage were valued compared to these public, transactional elements. Later, you are formally presented to your husband's family. His mother and sisters inspect you again, this time with the possessive eye of new owners. They are welcoming you, but they are also assessing their acquisition. They will be the new guardians of your body, responsible for ensuring you maintain your prized physique. The fattening is never truly over, it simply enters a new, less intense phase of maintenance. As the celebrations wind down and you are finally left in the quiet of your new home, the reality of your situation settles in. You have been successfully married. Your family's honor is secure. Your husband's status is enhanced. Everyone has gotten what they wanted. Everyone except, perhaps, the person inside the celebrated body. You have performed your duty. You have fulfilled the destiny that was written for you on the day you were born. But as you lie in the darkness, feeling the unfamiliar weight of your husband's home around you, you feel a profound sense of loss. You have been traded, celebrated, and displayed. And in the process, you have become the property of a world that values your flesh far more than your spirit. The music has faded, the guests have gone home, and the vibrant colors of the wedding celebration have been packed away. A new, quiet reality begins. You are now a wife, a respected matriarch in training in a new household. On the surface, you have achieved the pinnacle of female success in your culture. You have a husband, a home, and the undeniable status that your magnificent body confers upon you. But when the public performance is over, you are left alone with the private consequences. The beautiful, poetic ideals of the songs and stories begin to clash with the harsh, mundane reality of your physical existence. The graceful sway of your walk is, in the quiet of your own home, a clumsy, breathless waddle. The placid grace of your stillness is a heavy, deep lethargy that makes every small task feel monumental. This is the long-term price of the Leblouh tradition, a topic well documented by modern medical science. The beauty that was so brutally cultivated comes with a host of health problems. Your joints, ankles, knees, hips are under constant, immense strain. They ache with a dull, persistent pain that will likely grow into debilitating arthritis as you age. Your heart, forced to pump blood through a much larger body, is overworked. High blood pressure, heart disease, and diabetes are not distant risks, they are the probable, almost inevitable, companions of your celebrated form. You find yourself struggling with simple things. Bending down to pick something up leaves you dizzy and out of breath. Playing with the young children of the extended family is impossible, you can't keep up with them. Your world, once again, begins to shrink. It is confined not by the walls of a fattening tent, but by the limitations of your own body. The prison, once built by an expert, is now self-maintaining. And here is a small, tragic detail that is often lost in the discussion of major diseases: the impact on reproductive health. While a large body was associated with fertility in the cultural imagination, the reality of morbid obesity can often be the opposite. It can lead to hormonal imbalances, making it more difficult to conceive. And if you do become pregnant, the risks for both you and the child are significantly higher. The very tradition designed to signal ultimate fitness for motherhood could, in a cruel twist of irony, compromise it. You are expected to maintain your size. Your new mother-in-law watches your diet with a careful eye. A loss of weight would be seen as a sign of unhappiness or, worse, a sign that her son's household is not prosperous enough to keep his wife in the proper state. And so, the culture of high-calorie food continues. Not with the force of the ZAYAR, but with the gentle, relentless pressure of wifely duty. You must eat to show you are content. You must eat to uphold your husband's honor. This is where a fascinating academic debate about structural violence comes into play. The term, coined by physician and anthropologist Paul Farmer, refers to the way social structures or institutions can harm people by preventing them from meeting their basic needs. Scholars argue that traditions like Leblouh are a form of structural violence. There is no single villain, no evil person who is solely responsible. The violence is embedded in the system itself, in the cultural values, the social expectations, the marriage market. The harm it causes, the physical and psychological suffering, is a predictable outcome of the way the society is structured. The debate challenges the idea of cultural relativism by asking if a practice that causes such demonstrable harm can be defended simply because it is tradition. Sometimes, you catch your reflection. You see a large, respected woman, the picture of success, that you also see the weariness in your own eyes. You feel the constant, low-grade pain in your body. You remember the girl you once were, the one who could run like the wind, and a profound, silent grief washes over you. It's a grief you cannot share with anyone, because to do so would be to question the very foundation of your world, to be ungrateful for the honor that has been bestowed upon you. Your body, once a source of pride and celebration, is now your daily burden. The jewels of your stretch marks feel like the scars of a battle you lost. The poetry of your form is a lie that you must live with every single day. The triumphant noise of the wedding is gone, replaced by the quiet, internal monologue of your own physical discomfort. This is the long, slow, unpoetic epilogue to being a living work of art. In your new life as a married woman, you begin to observe the world with a different perspective. You are now part of the establishment, an embodiment of the ideal. And from this vantage point, you see how the ideal is enforced not just through active fattening, but through a pervasive culture of shame directed at the opposite thinness. You see it in the casual remarks made in the women's quarters. A visitor might arrive from a camp that is rumored to be less prosperous. Poor thing. One of your sisters-in-law might whisper, looking at the visitor's slender frame. You can see their hardship on her bones. Thinness is never just a physical state. It's a moral and economic diagnosis. It is equated with poverty, misfortune, and a lack of family love. You see a young, unmarried girl who is naturally slender. The older women cluck their tongues, shaking their heads. She'll never find a good husband looking like that. They murmur. Like a dried-up riverbed. Who would want to plant a seed that her body is seen as a failure? A sign that her family has neglected their duty. She is an object of pity, and sometimes, of scorn. This is the other side of the coin of this beauty standard, a fact that is historically consistent. To elevate one ideal, you must denigrate its opposite. The glorification of fatness was intrinsically linked to the stigmatization of thinness. A slender body wasn't neutral, it was a negative symbol. It represented everything the culture feared: hunger, poverty, infertility, and social insignificance. You learn the subtle language of this shame. If a woman loses weight after marriage, the whispers begin. Is her husband mistreating her? Is his family struggling financially? Her body becomes a public barometer of her husband's success. And any decrease in its size is a public relations crisis for his family. The pressure to remain large is immense, a lifelong duty. Here's a small, telling detail about this cultural pressure: the fear of being seen buying or using anything associated with weight loss. In a more traditional context, even being seen eating light foods too often could spark rumors. A woman might be praised for her hearty appetite, while one who just picked at her food would be viewed with suspicion. This created a social environment where public eating was a performance of abundance. You find yourself participating in this system, almost without thinking. You see a thin woman and the culturally conditioned response rises in you: a flicker of pity, a sense of superiority. You have been so deeply indoctrinated that the prejudice is now a reflex. You are both a victim of this system and one of its enforcers. You are upholding the same values that once imprisoned you. This creates a fascinating, though troubling, area for academic debate among sociologists and feminist theorists. How do oppressive systems perpetuate themselves? Often, it is through the victims becoming participants. Women, who were once subjected to the fattening process, become the most ardent enforcers of it on the next generation, on their own daughters and nieces. This isn't necessarily because they are malicious. It's because they genuinely believe it is the only path to security and honor for women in their society. They are trying to protect the next generation by ensuring they conform to the rules of the game. This cycle of internalized oppression is a powerful force that makes cultural change incredibly difficult. You are sitting with your mother-in-law one day, and a cousin visits. The cousin has been living in the capital city for a few years. She's dressed in a more modern style, and she is thin. Not tragically thin, but slender and healthy by a different standard. Your mother-in-law is polite but cool. After the cousin leaves, she shakes her head. The city ruins them, she says. She has forgotten who she is. She looks like a foreigner. Her words are revealing. Thinness is not just a sign of poverty, it's a sign of cultural betrayal. It's an embrace of outside, foreign values and a rejection of their own heritage. To be thin is to be inauthentic, to have lost your roots. The pressure is not just to be beautiful, but to be authentically beautiful according to the strict, local definition. You look at your own body, at the heavy limbs and soft flesh. This is your uniform of authenticity. It is the proof that you are a true woman of your people. But you remember the cousin's easy, light movements, the way she sat and stood without effort. And for a fleeting moment, you feel a sharp, forbidden pang of envy. It's a dangerous feeling, one you quickly suppress. To envy thinness is to commit a kind of treason. It is to wish for shame, poverty, and dishonor. And yet, the feeling was there, a tiny crack in the perfect facade of your conditioning, even in a world built on conformity. The human spirit has a way of quietly resisting the system of Leblouh, for all its power and pervasiveness, was not always met with perfect, passive acceptance. The resistance was rarely loud or overt. A young girl could not simply stand up and refuse. The consequences, both physical punishment and social ostracism, were too severe. But rebellion found other, subtler channels. It lived in the shadows, in the small, silent acts of defiance. As you settle into your life, you start to notice these hidden currents. You become an observer, and you learn to read the silent language of dissent. You might see it in a young girl currently undergoing the fattening process. She learns to cheat. She becomes an expert at hiding food, at secretly disposing of a mouthful of porridge when the expert's back is turned. She might learn to induce vomiting silently, a desperate and dangerous act of reclaiming control over her own stomach. These are small, desperate battles in a war she is destined to lose, but they are battles nonetheless. They are acts of agency, however small, in a situation designed to strip her of it. This is a common historical reality in many oppressive systems. Resistance often takes the form of weapons of the weak, sabotage, feigned ignorance, and quiet non-compliance. Then there were the failures. You hear stories, whispered with a mixture of pity and scandal, of girls who simply could not be fattened. Their bodies, for metabolic or psychological reasons, resisted the process so fiercely that even the ZIR in the funnel could not produce the desired result. These girls were often sent back home in shame, their marriage prospects ruined. They became cautionary tales, but in their failure, they represented a form of passive resistance. Their bodies, if not their voices, refused to conform. You also begin to see it in married women. Like yourself, a woman might publicly adhere to the norms, eating heartily at social gatherings, but in the privacy of her own home, she might secretly restrict her diet, trying to lose a small amount of weight to alleviate her joint pain or simply to feel more comfortable in her own skin. This was a risky game. She had to maintain the appearance of size, using layered clothing to hide any weight loss, while secretly trying to claw back a measure of physical well-being. Here's a fascinating, specific form of this silent rebellion: the deliberate misuse of medicine. As Western medicine became more available, women discovered that certain treatments had side effects, like appetite loss. A woman might feign an illness to get a prescription for a drug she knew would make her less hungry, using medicine as a covert tool for weight management. It was a clever manipulation of a new system to fight an old one. You meet a woman, an older, respected matriarch, who confides in you one day. She tells you about her own experience with Leblouh decades ago. She speaks of it not with the poetic pride of the official narrative, but with a quiet, lingering bitterness. They built a beautiful house, she says, looking down at her own substantial body, but they forgot to ask if anyone wanted to live inside it. This quiet sharing of stories, this creation of a private, alternative narrative among women, was perhaps the most powerful form of resistance. It didn't change the system overnight, but it kept the truth of the experience alive. It created a space for dissent, a validation of the suffering that the public culture denied. It was a counter-narrative whispered from mother to daughter, from friend to friend. The academic debate here is lively. Some historians and anthropologists, particularly in the past, have tended to portray the culture as monolithic, with near-universal acceptance of its norms. This perspective often downplays or ignores evidence of resistance, viewing it as anomalous or insignificant. More recent, subaltern studies, however, actively seek out these hidden histories. They focus on oral testimonies and the weapons of the weak to argue that no system of power is ever absolute. They contend that even in the most oppressive circumstances, individuals and groups find ways to assert their humanity and resist dehumanization. The story of Leblouh looks very different when told from the perspective of the resistors, rather than the enforcers. You start to see the cracks in the perfect, polished surface of your culture. You see the silent struggles, the hidden acts of defiance, the shared, whispered truths. The world is not as simple as the poems and songs would have you believe. It is a place of conflict, of quiet, constant negotiation between an overpowering tradition and the enduring, rebellious spirit of the individual. You don't act on this knowledge. You are too deeply embedded in the system. Your own success too dependent on it. But knowing it changes you. It plants a seed of critical awareness. You are not alone in your quiet, internal grief for the girl you once were. There are others, an army of silent rebels, fighting for small measures of freedom in a world that has tried to take it all away. The world outside your camp, the world beyond the horizon of sand, does not stand still. It changes, slowly at first. Then with gathering speed, the change arrives not on a camel, but through invisible waves in the air and the rumble of truck engines on a newly paved road far in the distance. It is the arrival of the 20th and 21st centuries. You see it first in the young men who leave the nomadic life to find work in the growing coastal cities like Nauhakot or in the mining towns. They come back to visit, and they are different. They wear jeans under their traditional robes. They bring back cheap radios that crackle with music from Egypt, Lebanon, and France. And they bring back new ideas. They have seen a different world. A world with different rules and different women. They have watched television, seen magazines, and worked alongside women who are educated, who have jobs, and who are, by and large, thin. Their gaze begins to change. The old, established equation large woman equals wealth and beauty starts to have new variables added to it. This process of urbanization and exposure to global media is the single most powerful for eroding the tradition of Leblouh. The historical consensus is clear on this point. As the economy shifts away from a purely pastoral, nomadic base, the old logic of fat equals survival becomes less relevant. When food can be bought in a market, a wife's body no longer needs to be a walking pantry. New forms of status, a government job, a university degree, a car begin to compete with the old form of the well-fed wife. You see this change reflected in the marriage market. A young man who has lived in the city might still respect the old ways, but his desires are now split. He might want a wife who is substantial enough to please his parents and dollar tradition, but not so large that she appears backward or unhealthy to his new, urban peers. A new, hybrid ideal begins to emerge, a woman who is pleasantly plump but not immobile, one who is modern yet traditional. This creates immense confusion and anxiety for young women and their families. The target is no longer clear. What, exactly, is the new definition of beauty? How fat is to fat, how thin is to thin? Here's a specific, telling example of this cultural shift. You might see a family put their daughter through a less intense version of Leblouh, aiming for a medium size. They are hedging their bets, trying to appeal to both the traditional and the modern sensibilities. The girl becomes the physical embodiment of a culture in transition, her body a battleground for competing ideals. The new ideas arrive through other channels, too. Government health campaigns, often supported by international organizations, begin to talk about the dangers of obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes. Doctors and nurses visit rural areas, bringing with them a completely alien vocabulary of calories, cholesterol, and body mass index. They frame the traditional ideal not as beautiful, but as a disease. This creates a deep and contentious academic debate around medical interventionism and cultural imperialism. On one hand, from a public health perspective, these campaigns are seen as necessary, life-saving interventions designed to combat a serious health crisis. On the other hand, some anthropologists and post-colonial theorists critique them as a form of cultural imperialism. They argue that Western medicine often arrives with an inherent sense of superiority, dismissing centuries of local knowledge and values as ignorant or harmful. The debate asks, where is the line between providing helpful medical advice and imposing one's own cultural values about what a healthy or correct body should look like? You witness these clashes firsthand. You might see a young mother listening to a government nurse talk about the importance of a balanced diet for her child, and then see her go home and follow the advice of her own mother-in-law, who insists the child needs more milk and butter to be healthy. Two different worlds, two different truths, colliding in the space of a single family. The radio crackles with a pop song. A truck rumbles past on the distant road, kicking up a cloud of dust. A young man shows his brother a blurry picture on a cheap mobile phone, a picture of a famous, slender movie actress. Each of these is a small crack in the foundation of your world. The old certainties are dissolving. The fattening tent, once a sacred institution, is starting to look like a relic from a bygone era. The world is changing, and the definition of beauty is changing with it. For you, and for the generations of women to come, the path is no longer clear. The old map is useless, and the new one has not yet been drawn. A strange new secret enters the society of women. It's a paradox, a contradiction that flourishes in the space between the old world and the new. While some families in more remote areas are still practicing traditional Leblouh, a new, opposite practice is taking hold, especially in the towns and cities. It is the secret of slimming. And just as the old tradition had its tools and techniques, so does this new one. But they are not wooden sticks and funnels. They are small, brightly colored packets and blister packs of pills, diet pills. They are often of dubious origin, smuggled from neighboring countries or sold under the counter in market stalls, promising quick, effortless weight loss. This creates a fascinating and bizarre symmetry. You now have a culture where some mothers are forcing their daughters to consume 20 calories a day to gain weight, while other mothers are secretly giving their daughters unregulated slimming teas to lose it. The shared element is the coercion and the focus on the daughter's body as a project to be managed for the marriage market. The goal has simply flipped for a portion of the population. This rise of a clandestine diet industry is a documented phenomenon in many transitioning societies. As global beauty standards penetrate local cultures, they create a market for products that promise to help people achieve this new, often unattainable, ideal. But the paradox runs even deeper. The most coveted state for some young, Urban women becomes a strange and physically punishing cycle. They might undergo a form of Leblouh to gain weight and please their families, securing a traditional marriage. Then, after the wedding, they might secretly begin taking diet pills or other products to lose the weight, striving to look more modern for their husbands and urban peers. Their bodies are caught in a violent tug-of-war between two opposing ideals. You hear about this from a cousin who lives in the city. She talks about the two-faced body. Publicly, at family gatherings, a woman might wear loose, traditional robes to maintain the appearance of being heavy and respecting tradition. Privately, at home with her husband or with her modern friends, she might wear more Western-style clothing that reveals a much slimmer figure. It's a life of constant performance, a physical manifestation of the cultural schizophrenia she inhabits. Here's a specific and rather odd detail about this phenomenon: the use of appetite-enhancing versus appetite-suppressing products. In the same marketplace, you could find traditional herbs and modern vitamin syrups sold openly as appetite stimulants for girls who were too thin, while just a few stalls away, under the counter, a vendor would be selling black market diet pills that were essentially appetite suppressants, often amphetamine-based. A young woman's entire future could be determined by which stall her mother decided to patronize. This leads to a complex academic debate about modernity and the body. Is this shift towards slimness a sign of female empowerment and liberation from a harmful tradition, or is it simply the replacement of one oppressive beauty standard with another, equally demanding one? Feminist scholars are divided. Some argue that choosing to be thin is an act of rebellion, a way for women to reclaim control over their bodies and their health. Others argue that the thin ideal promoted by global media is just as restrictive and harmful as the traditional fat ideal. It still reduces a woman's value to her appearance and subjects her to dangerous practices like using unregulated diet pills to achieve it. This debate asks whether women are escaping the prison of the body or just moving to a different cell block. You witness the human cost of this confusion. You meet a young woman who has been taking slimming pills. She is nervous and jittery, her heart racing from the stimulants. She has lost weight, but she looks unhealthy, exhausted. She is caught between her mother-in-law's disapproval of her weight loss and her husband's subtle praise for her new, slimmer figure. She is trying to please everyone and is destroying herself in the process. The secrets multiply. Just as women once whispered about the best garbage used, they now whisper about which brand of diet pill works the fastest, or which pharmacist is willing to sell them without a prescription. The secret knowledge of women, which once focused entirely on the art of gaining, now includes the dark art of losing. The world feels increasingly complicated, the rules more confusing than ever. The old path, as brutal as it was at least clear. Now, there are two paths, leading in opposite directions, and women are being pushed down both at the same time. The result is a quiet, hidden epidemic of physical and psychological distress, as women's bodies become the primary battlefield in a silent culture war. Years have passed. Your own children are growing. You are now a respected matriarch in your own right. Your body a testament to a life lived in accordance with tradition. You carry the weight of your history, both literally and figuratively. One day, your own daughter, a young woman on the cusp of adulthood, comes to you. She has grown up in a world that is vastly different from the one you knew at her age. She has been to school. She can read and write. She has seen the world through the flickering screen of a smartphone. She sits with you, not with the demure silence of your generation, but with a new kind of confidence, a questioning look in her eyes. She asks you about your past. She asks you about the stories she has heard, about the Leblouh. She asks you, "Mother, why did you do it?" And so, a conversation begins. A conversation that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. It is a dialogue between two worlds. A negotiation between the past and the future, played out between a mother and her daughter. You start by telling her the stories you were told. You speak of the great famines, of how a large body was a sign of life and security. You recite the lines from the old poems, trying to convey the beauty and honor that were once associated with your form. It was our way, you explain. It was how a woman showed her family's honor. It was how she found a good husband and secured her future. You are defending the world that made you. You are explaining the logic of a system that, for all its cruelty, was the only one you knew. This is the classic narrative of tradition, passed down from one generation to the next. Your daughter listens patiently, but she does not accept your explanation as the final word. She comes back with her own knowledge, gleaned from her school books and the internet. But mother, she says gently, the health campaigns say it causes sickness. My biology teacher told us about heart disease and diabetes. Is it honorable to be sick? She is introducing a new vocabulary, a new framework for understanding the body. It is the language of science, of modern medicine. It is a logic that does not speak of poetry or honor, but of blood pressure and metabolic syndrome. Here, in this single conversation, is the crux of the culture clash. It's a dialogue between two different epistemologies, two different ways of knowing the truth. Your truth is based on tradition, oral history, and social symbolism. Her truth is based on empirical data, biology, and a globalized concept of health. And then she asks a more difficult question. Were you happy? The question hangs in the air, simple and devastating. You look at your daughter, and her bright, curious face, and for the first time, you allow yourself to answer with a truth that is not coated in poetry. You tell her about the tent. You tell her about the endless bowls of porridge, about the ache in your stomach, about the constant, heavy fatigue. You don't use the words DAYRR. It's a memory to share. But you describe the feeling of being forced, of your body becoming a prison. This act of testimony is a crucial, modern phenomenon. As women of your generation grow older, more of them are beginning to share the unvarnished truth of their experiences with their daughters and with researchers. These oral histories are providing a vital counter-narrative to the official, romanticized version of the past. They are, as scholars would say, giving voice to the subaltern, allowing the stories of the oppressed to finally be heard. The academic debate is now focused on the intergenerational transmission of trauma. How does the experience of a grandmother who was force-fed affect the choices and anxieties of her granddaughter, who may be struggling with the pressures of globalized thin ideals? Some psychologists argue that trauma can be passed down, not genetically, but through behaviors, anxieties, and family dynamics. A mother who has a deeply troubled relationship with her own body and with food, due to her experience with Leblouh, may unconsciously pass those anxieties on to her daughter, even if the daughter herself is not being fattened. Your daughter takes your hand. Her grip is warm and firm. You were so strong to survive that, she says. She doesn't see your body as a symbol of honor or shame. She sees it as the site of your suffering, and of your survival. In her eyes, you are not a beautiful statue or a cautionary tale. You are a person. In that moment, the power dynamic between the generations shifts. She is not just your child to be instructed, she is a confidant, a witness to your unspoken pain. And you are not just a matriarch, an enforcer of tradition, you are a survivor, whose story deserves to be heard. The conversation doesn't resolve anything. The conflict between tradition and modernity still rages outside your tent, but inside, something has changed. A bridge has been built across the generational divide. You have given her the gift of your history, and she has given you the gift of her understanding. The chain of silent suffering has been broken by a single, honest conversation. The world keeps spinning, and the old ways continue their slow retreat. The fattening tints are now rare, mostly found in the most remote, conservative corners of the desert, like living museums of a fading tradition, in the cities and towns. They are a memory, a story that grandmothers tell with a mixture of nostalgia and shame. The battle has, for the most part, been won by the new aesthetic of slimness and modernity. But a tradition that has shaped a culture for centuries does not simply vanish. It leaves behind a ghost, an echo, a shadow that continues to fall upon the lives of women, even those who have never seen a funnel or heard a fattening song. You see this shadow in the way your own daughter and her friends talk about their bodies. They are not being force-fed, but they are still not free. They are besieged by a different kind of pressure. They scroll through images on social media, seeing impossibly thin models and influencers. They compare their own bodies to these globalized, airbrushed ideals and find themselves wanting. The goal has changed, but the anxiety remains. The prison has been renovated, but it is still a prison. This persistence of body anxiety across generations is a key area of study for contemporary sociologists and psychologists. The legacy of Leblouh isn't just the physical health problems in older women. It's a deeply ingrained cultural belief that a woman's body is a project to be managed, a public property to be judged. The tools have changed from porridge and sticks to calorie-counting apps and diet pills, but the underlying premise remains disturbingly similar. A woman's worth is still intrinsically tied to her physical form. You see the ghost of Leblouh in the food culture. Even in urban families, there is often a deep, residual belief that feeding a child well, often overfeeding them, is the ultimate expression of love. A grandmother might see her slender granddaughter and, driven by the ghost of famine, instinctively try to fatten her up with sweets and rich foods, while the girl's mother, influenced by modern health advice, tries to restrict her sugar intake. The dinner table becomes a quiet battleground, haunted by the ghosts of conflicting traditions. Here's a specific, poignant example of this lingering shadow. Some young women today report a strange double bind. They feel pressure from their urban, educated peers to be thin and modern. At the same time, when they visit their families in more traditional areas, they are criticized for being too skinny, for having abandoned their culture. They can never be right. They are judged by two completely contradictory standards, and their bodies become the site of this impossible cultural negotiation. They are criticized for being too fat and too thin at the same time. The academic debate has now shifted to what we might call post-Leblouh syndrome. What are the long-term, multi-generational psychological impacts of such a powerful and invasive beauty tradition? Does it create a legacy of disordered eating, a body dysmorphia, of a collective, culturally ingrained dissatisfaction with the female form? Some scholars argue that the dramatic swing from a fat positive to a thin positive ideal in just a few generations has been psychologically jarring, leaving women with no stable ground on which to build a healthy body image. The cultural whiplash is, in itself, a form of trauma. You sit with your daughter as she looks at her own reflection, pulling at her stomach, sighing with a frustration that is both ancient and modern. You see your own history reflected in her anxiety. You were forced into a body you did not want. She is striving for a body she cannot have. The pain is different, but the root is the same: the belief that a woman's body is not her own to inhabit, but a thing to be shaped and judged by the outside world. The ghost of the tradition is subtle but powerful. It's in a casual remark from an uncle about a cousin who has let herself go. It's in the booming market for skin lightening creams and hair straightening products that sit alongside the diet pills, all tools to get closer to a globalized ideal. The shadow of Leblouh is the lingering idea that a woman's natural body is not good enough, that it must be transformed, controlled, and perfected according to the arbitrary rules of the day. The fattening tents may be gone, but the ghost still whispers in the ears of young women, telling them that their bodies are a problem to be solved. The real challenge, you realize, was never just about getting rid of the practice. It was about getting rid of the thinking that made it possible in the first place. And that ghost, you fear, will take much longer to fade away. The journey is over. You have traveled from the cradle to the grave of a tradition. You have felt the loving hands that measured your infant wrists, the impersonal force of the expert who remade your body, the approving gaze of men, and the questioning eyes of your own daughter. You have lived an entire history, a cycle of belief and suffering. of honor and pain, all within the confines of a single human form. Now at the end of it all, you lie under the vast, silent desert sky. The stars are the same ones that looked down on your ancestors as they huddled against the cold and the hunger. They are the same stars that will look down on your grandchildren as they navigate their own new world. The silence of the desert is no longer just an absence of sound, it's a space for contemplation. You find yourself asking the question that has been lurking beneath the surface of this entire journey: what is beauty? Who gets to decide? The tradition of Leblouh, for all its brutality, provided a clear, unambiguous answer. Beauty was substance. It was presence. It was a defiant statement of life in the face of a harsh world. It was an answer born of fear and history. An answer that was poetic and punishing in equal measure. This is the ultimate, mainstream understanding of the tradition's core philosophy. It wasn't random, it had a deep, powerful, and internally consistent logic. The modern world provides a different answer. Beauty is slimness. It is fitness. It is a different kind of defiance, not against famine, but against aging, against genetics, against the natural state of the body itself. It is an answer born of media, of capitalism, of a globalized culture. It too has its own logic, its own tools of enforcement, its own priests and priestesses in the form of influencers and advertisers. You have lived the transition between these two tyrannies. You have seen one god fall and another rise to take its place. And you realize that perhaps the problem was never the specific definition of beauty, but the very existence of a single, narrow, mandatory definition. Here is a final, fascinating detail from the real world that speaks to this. In Mauritania today, there are now women's health activists and artists who are working to create a third way. They are not trying to go back to Leblouh, nor are they uncritically embracing global thinness. They are promoting a message of body neutrality and health at every size. They use art, social media, and community workshops to encourage women to reclaim their bodies from any ideology, to see them not as projects to be perfected, but as homes to be lived in. They are trying to build a new language, one that moves beyond the fat-thin dichotomy. This movement is at the heart of the final academic debate. Is it possible for a society to exist without a dominant, prescriptive beauty standard? Can we move beyond what feminist philosopher Susan Bordeaux called the tyranny of the slender body, and in this case, the tyranny of the fat body, towards a genuine pluralism? Optimists believe that education, feminism, and global connectivity can create a future where there are millions of ways to be beautiful. Pessimists argue that human societies are hardwired to create social hierarchies, and that the body will always be a primary canvas for displaying status and conforming to group norms. The debate is ongoing, and the future is unwritten. You look up at the endless stars, each one a fiery, independent point of light in the vast darkness. No one tells a star it is too big or too small, too bright or too dim. It simply is. You think of your own body, the aching joints, the silvery scars, the heavy flesh. It is not a poem. It is not a disease. It is a history. It is the story of a girl, a woman, a culture, a time. It is the record of your survival. And perhaps you think that is a kind of beauty after all. Not the beauty of an ideal, but the beauty of a story, the beauty of a reality that was lived, in all its pain and all its complexity. The journey has brought you here, to this quiet moment of acceptance. You are no longer fighting the past or fearing the future. You are simply present, a single, breathing soul under an infinite sky. The cool desert air feels gentle on your skin. You close your eyes, and for the first time in a long time, you feel a sense of peace. You are not a symbol. You are not a project. You are just you, and that is enough. The world around you begins to soften, the edges blurring, as if seen through a gentle haze. The sharp clarity of the desert night gives way to the softer, more forgiving landscape of a dream. The weight of your own body seems to lessen, the aches and pains dissolving into a distant memory. like the remnants of a story that has already been told. The cruel desert tear that you felt on your skin is now just a gentle, rhythmic breath, a quiet hum that rocks you slowly, peacefully. You are drifting now, floating in that calm, quiet space between wake arsenals and sleep. The narrative has ended, the voices have faded, and all that remains is a profound stillness. The questions about beauty, and history, and pain, they all unravel, losing their urgency, becoming soft, puffy clouds in the vast sky of your slumbering mind. There are no more expectations, no more judgments. Just a gentle, unconditional acceptance. You feel light, you feel free, the journey is over, and you have arrived at a place of rest. Let the silence hold you. Let the darkness be a soft blanket. Let yourself drift deeper and deeper into the quiet comfort of the night. The end of the article. Good night.